Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today we're going to be looking at Araquanid. And this is an incredibly weird card, because it's this Araquanid that we got way back in the Sun and Moon base set, which at this stage was a little while ago, but as a grass type. This is leaked on pokebeach.com, and it certainly looks like the exact same card. The ability is the same. The attack is the same. The HP, the retreat cost are exactly the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a reprint, but instead of being an alternate art reprint, it's an alternate type reprint. This will, as a side note, be coming out in Japan in Sun and Moon 4+. So that means that it's actually likely to be coming out in our Sun and Moon 5 Ultra Sun Ultra Moon set in February, which means that it may well last a bit longer than the existing Araquanid we have. This will not be an alternate art reprint because it's not the same card. Now, there are two bits of news that we don't have at the moment. We don't know the weakness, we don't know the attack cost. I would be incredibly surprised if it wasn't weak to fire, as most grass Pokemon in the Pokemon trading card game are, as the one from Burning Shadows was, and similarly, seeing that it is a grass type, I would very much expect the attack cost to be a grass double colourless, because even though it's the same card as a grass type, you would expect it to have a grass type attack cost and a grass type weakness. That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, makes perfect sense. So now, we've got to look at this card all over again, because a lot of things change. Now, in terms of the weakness, it's actually a much worse weakness, because being weak to grass is kind of irrelevant. The two big grass attackers we have at the moment are Golisopod and Tapu, both of which will be getting a very easy one-hit KO anyway, because Araquanid only has 100 HP. But a weakness to fire and 100 HP is incredibly relevant because of Volcanion. Volcanion does 20 damage for 1 energy, but with 1 steam up from Volcanion EX, will actually do 50 damage, which doubles to 100 and gets a one-hit KO. So a fire-weak Araquanid, 1 steam up, KO from baby Volcanion. But non-fire weak, it will actually take 3 steam ups to do 110. So there is a big difference here, although the ability, we'll get to it in just a second. In fact, let's get to it now. The ability is still good. Grant Manley did very well at a previous tournament with this last format. There is no reason to suggest this is a bad ability. Araquanid basically has immunity, not from any other effects, but from damage, from any attacks from fire Pokemon. So I talked about the baby Volcanion. Yeah, it's got to get through the ability first, because at the moment, the fire weakness is actually irrelevant, because it doesn't matter if you're weak to fire, if you're also immune to fire. Although if they turn off the ability, then the weakness comes back. And fire decks are big right now. We've got Volcanion, Ho-Oh, Salazzle, and Turtonator, and we see a whole bunch of different variations of this deck played, but they all revolve around these 3 Pokemon. At the most recent large standard format tournament we had in Hartford, 3 of the top 8 were actually these fire decks, and it was the only deck that had more than 1 representative in the top 8 of that particular tournament. And in theory, you come forward with this ability and all of those attackers are shut off straight away. And we don't have Hex Maniac anymore, so your opponent can't just play a Hex Maniac and then take the KO. They've got to get through this ability. Now, we do still have Garbodor, but this is a very unusual ability, of course, because it's only relevant against fire decks. Nobody's playing fire with Garbodor at the moment, partly because there's no natural synergy, and partly because fire decks are all based largely around basic Pokemon. Yes, I know Salazzle is a stage 1. And you really want Volcanion EX's ability to add 30 damage to basic fire Pokemon when you discard a fire energy from your hand. So in theory, this ability should be absolutely amazing. Everyone that's playing fire Pokemon isn't playing anyway to get rid of abilities, so you stick an Araquanid out and you get an auto win against fire decks, or do you? Well, no. And here's the big issue. everybody's playing Tapu Lele at the moment. And Tapu Lele's got an attack for a double colourless energy that does 20 damage for every energy attached to both active Pokemon. And if you're using Araquanid rather than just sticking an Araquanid up to block, then you've got free energy on there. Tapu Lele comes up with a double colourless energy, does 100 and gets a one-hit KO. So here's what I'm thinking, and it's kinda convoluted, but it just might work. You're against a fire deck, you stick up an Araquanid and basically say, come at me, bro. Just pop the Araquanid in the active, don't attach any energy. Tapu Lele can get a one-hit KO here, but has got to do so for 5 energy just to take a single prize. You then bring up something else, maybe like a Tapu Bulu, for instance, to KO the Tapu Lele, and then you've essentially swapped 1 prize for 2, and there's nothing to stop you bringing up another Araquanid if and when your Tapu Bulu goes down. If Tapu Bulu doesn't go down, you play an Ace Roller and just stick another Araquanid up in the active. If you're attacking with Araquanid, that's a bit of an issue, because Tapu Lele can just double colourless and KO. But if you just use Araquanid to block fire decks, maybe try and deck them out while they can't hurt you, Tapu Lele becomes a much less good attacker, and you can always play Araquanid with something like Energy Denial, think Enhanced Hammer to get rid of those double colourless whatever, to try and slow down Tapu Lele. Although they can still use Baby Volcanion to accelerate energy onto a bench Tapu Lele, though they will be doing no damage. My point is this: you don't instantly beat fire decks because you drop an Araquanid because of Tapu Lele. But you know what? Tapu Lele takes 5 energy if you've got no energy attached to you, and then you can bring in other attackers like a Tapu Bulu to take out the Lele, just put another Araquanid up. It's not an auto win, but it really does give you an option against these fire decks that you didn't have before. I know we had the old Araquanid, but you'd have to be playing water energy to attack. So not being a water Pokemon anymore means you lose the hitting for water weakness. 70 is perfect because it gets a one-hit KO on Volcanion, and with a Choice Band it gets a one-hit KO on the EX and on Turtonator. And you lose access to Aqua Patch to get set up a little bit faster. But you gain Vikavolt, which is lovely, and we see that both Tapu Bulu and Golisopod see a lot of play at the moment, which are grass Pokemon, and potentially this is more use than the water one, because, well, why would you put Araquanid in a water deck to make yourself immune to fire Pokemon when you're playing a water deck and hitting them all for weakness anyway, except Ho-Oh? Whereas a Golisopod deck, which is going to be weak to fire, really wants to have an answer against fire decks. In comes the still grass type but now immune to fire, Araquanid. You also gain both the Lurantis GX to accelerate energy and the promo Lurantis that allows you to do extra damage if anybody is actually playing that. And although your weakness isn't super relevant in terms of what you're hitting, with a Choice Band you will be doing 200 to a Lycanroc, which might be seeing more play in the near future with Zoroark GX. So I suppose we should probably have a quick look at what other Pokemon we would want to change typing. What other Pokemon do we want an alternate type reprint? Now, the one that really jumps out here would be Golisopod GX. Not unlike Araquanid, in the video games, Golisopod is a bug water Pokemon. So there is absolutely potential here for Golisopod to be reprinted in the future as a water type GX, which would be potentially borderline broken. Because at that stage now, you're not weak to all these fire decks, you're actually hitting 4 weakness, and you would gain Aqua Patch, although I suppose you would potentially be weak to grass-type Golisopod, depending on what weakness they went for. They could, for instance, go for lightning weakness instead. And this would be funny because Araquanid would be going water to grass and Golisopod would be going grass to weakness. And do let me know in the comment if there's any other ones you would love an alternate type reprint. Do let me know in the comment section. Just remember it would have to be a type they have in the video game. Because Greninja could go dark type, but then you'd be hitting nothing good for weakness. That would be rubbish. Drampa could go Dragon type, but then you'd be weak to Gardevoir, which would be rubbish. And I suppose the Tapus could go Fairy type, but there's no good Dragon types to hit for weakness, and they don't have any weakness, so it wouldn't affect that either. But like I've said, let me know in the comments which Pokemon you would like to see alternate type reprints with. I'm going to give Araquanid between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I love the alternate type reprint here. I love that it gives you an option for grass decks against fire decks, but the reality is that Tapu Lele still gives them an option against you, so it just isn't the counter it otherwise could have been. But as I've said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments. I want to hear from you. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus pods, etc., you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.